In overall, we took a I just want to give you some context here. It's a very low budget trip that we took. We engage in independent travel. We do a lot of self-discovery, so we do most of the guiding on our own, planning on our own. This was a trip for about 5 weeks from February to March. It's the dry season, and our intent is really to cover a lot of nature and not necessarily to amass, like I say, the biggest bird list in the shortest time. So we're all around naturalists. My slides are not moving.
Sometimes you might need to
Oh,
click
there we
on the
go. Okay,
screen.
I'm being maybe too light with my fingers. Okay, so the goals for today, try to give you some natural history fun facts, introduce you to some new and different exotic bird families. Really look at my wife does a lot of the bird photography, actually all the bird photography. We share the photography for the other parts of natural history, but she does the telephoto work, and it really helps with identifying the bird species afterwards. I hope I can provide some participation, as I say, with throwing out some questions. And then also humor. I do, I can insert some humor for everybody and encourage a visit back to Panama. Or, and if you've already been there before, this will give you an idea exactly where Panama is. Its neighbor to the north is Costa Rica, neighbor to the south is Colombia. If you've been to any of those three countries, I hope this gets you excited to go back. I hope this brings some positive memories recurring to you as a result of that. Um, the Now let's see. Yes, so you can see the mouse there on the screen. So the mountains from Costa Rica, Talamanca, Cordillera de Talamanca, goes all the way into Panama. And so you get a lot of the similar species happening in this area. And there's a lot of uh, but there's difference because of Colombia. A lot of stuff is coming north from Colombia into Panama, so you get this really neat mix because you've got stuff moving down. And the this will show you a bit of the itinerary. We started in Panama City, roughly in the middle of the country, and you can see that it borders the Atlantic or Caribbean seas on the north, and the Pacific Ocean is on the south. So it has a lot of diversity. From Panama City, we went to the east, and I've got to move this out of the way here. Okay. We moved all the way to the east through Panama Province and down towards Darien. The Pan American Highway doesn't go all the way to the Colombia border. It's an area that's really remote, um, and so we didn't get all the way down there, but we went that way. We also went a little bit north into this beautiful national park, Soberana National Park up here, and this is where the Panama Canal goes, north, directly north of Panama City. We also went to the west and we traveled all the way through Cocle Province. We were down into Azuero Peninsula. We went back up through Veraguas and over to Chiriquí to the border with Costa Rica. And this is where the mountains and the big volcano is. That volcano, there's the one big volcano in Panama known as Volcan Baru, and it is a national park. And this whole area is actually with Costa Rica. There's a national park called Amistad National Park, and beautiful, beautiful area. Okay, so our resources for the trip, big one is this book called Birds of Central America, and the eBird, or sorry, Merlin, actually only has 59% of the Panamanian birds are in Merlin for sounds. And so that made it a bit of a challenge. We used iNaturalist a lot of after the trip. When I get home, I do that for most of the plants and pretty well all the species other than birds. This is just an idea of some of our accommodation. Again, I say kind of low budget. The place on the left there, this was like it was one, two, three, 4 units in there. So we had the one on the far left. That's just looking through the window. Basically, we have a bed, we have a table, a cupboard, and And yeah, and that's about it. Oh, and a shower and a bathroom. That's our the type of accommodation that we were using. This is another example of one, and beautiful view. Just an idea of we were looking out on the ocean that was in that peninsula area. And lastly, another little place that was again a simple little cabin, sort of stucco, but similar type of setup. So we're not staying ever in fancy lodges. Um, and then this is an example of the type of little food area, little casita, and you go in, you order the comida típica, which is the typical meal of the day, corriente, comida corriente, and it's just fantastic. Keeps your price way, way down by not having to eat in hotels and things. Um, just an idea of some of the relief that we're dealing with, some of the trails you can see coming through. This is a little trail here. A lot of the trails are pretty well roadways at the same time. This is in the cloud forest, and you can walk a lot on roads there, and it's really great. And this is just another more showing you these gigantic emergent trees that come out. Yes, there are mountains, if you're asking, in Costa Rica, that big spine down the middle. Yes, there are waterfalls. Yes, there are palm trees. And yes, there's color, even in February for in the trees, and it's flowers. The one in the front is actually a red euphorbia, and the orange tree in the back is let's see, what was that one? I got to check my notes here. Oh yes, this was the golden trumpet tree, and no, sorry, this was the erythrina, and beautiful orange colors. Um, yeah, there it is. It's a legume. Interesting. So not the little tiny legumes that we have, but they have trees that are legumes in pea family. This is the golden trumpet, and it's actually in the begonia family, which is interesting. Named after the Abbé Jean-Paul Bignon. I always thought begonia was a strange spelling word, and now I know it's after the French royal librarian to Louis XIV, the Abbé Bignon. So we probably need to pronounce it more like Bignonia. Anyways, um, why Panama? Well, Panama is one of three countries that is actually carbon negative in the world. And I just read that, found that out. 65% of the country is rainforest. This is Panama City that you're seeing in the background. It's the oldest European settlement on the Pacific coast. 1519 it was started. Now we're looking at the modern day Panama. It has an amazing skyline. It blew me away. This picture is, if you take the far right of the first picture and keep going, this is the skyline that keeps going. It is the biggest one I've ever seen in any country ever. There's another kind of view of it with the Metropolitan National Park in the foreground, which is the only protected tropical forest found within the city limits of a major urban area in the North and South America. Um, that's a long possible thing, but anyways, that's what they claim. Um, we walked along a barrier, island sort of thing, peninsula, also right out of Panama City, and bringing the binoculars. Just always bring the binoculars. And one of the key things in Panama City was the Biodiversity Museum. Incredible place. I highly recommend it. You can get a discount if you're a jubilados, and that's a senior. I think that's a great Spanish word for, to be jubilant. You're a senior because you got all the time in the world. Um, Inside, it's not so much on the outside, but on the inside, there's some incredible displays illustrating the whole land. I didn't realize, obviously, Panama joined up North America, South America, and they did that about the time that the last ice age happened. And actually, that was the reason for the last ice age. And it talks all about the land bridge and the various animals, the carnivores that came down from the north, the herbivores that came up from the south, and again, fascinating museum. They have tanks, gigantic 3 to 4 story tanks, illustrating both the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean because they border both. They have another gallery that shows you all these interrelationships between plants and animals on a mega scale. This is a giant fig plant, and if you can look closely, you may be able to see the little wasp that lives inside the fig plant. And this is just one example of many of these gigantic things. Right out of Panama City is the Rainforest Discovery Center in a town called Gamboa, and it's on the Panama Canal. And it was a wonderful start. That picture back there, that pipe coming out, we're actually halfway up a tower. And so the Rainforest Discovery Center has this amazing observation tower. And you don't have to go to an expensive hotel to access their tower. This is in a state park, and you can go visit it there. One of the great things, here we go. Here's an example of photography, telephoto. If you're looking at this picture, you may not see any bird, but that is a telephoto shot. And if you look at that little blue mark in the middle, the next picture is going to show you, even though it's not in focus, I couldn't tell what it was in binoculars, but with that, by zooming in afterwards, we were able to tell. Not only I knew it was kind of probably a honey creeper, but now I know it's a red-legged honey creeper, even though the picture's out of focus. So, and also the same place, being able to zoom in with the photograph, we were able to tell. Motmots are not easy to tell apart, but you can look underneath the bill here, and you know it is a broad-billed motmot, even though the coloration can be very much like all the other motmots with that distinctive little tail of theirs and green and rusty colors. Also with the telephoto, the cuckoo, squirrel cuckoo, we were able to tell that one. We could see the markings on the end of the tail, that white and black markings. The Here we go. Another from that tower, way, way in the distance, there was we could tell it was a pigeon. Looking up in the book, the closest thing was this thing called a scaled pigeon. But we're looking at, what are all those weird markings on them? I'm not seeing any of that. So it couldn't be. So zooming in a little bit more, starting to see some bit of differentiation between the neck and the head. You can see some colors there. Zooming in a little bit more, still helpful, because the bill now we can really see that it's that two-tone, the yellow tip to the red. And that was, even though we still can't see that scaling, there was nothing else it could be. And that was only able to do that because of having that telephoto shot. Another example here, who's off there in the distance? Couldn't tell, but zooming in with the camera, I mean, I knew it was probably a toucan, but with the binoculars, but this really clinched it. Ended up being a keel-billed toucan. If you look at that bill, it's got that amazing red tip and orange and green, very colorful little guy. The other toucan that's most common in the area is yellow-throated toucan. You can see the two tones to his bill, and the back end of the body of the bird is almost the same as the other toucan that we were looking at. It's the bill that makes the difference. And now, question, is this a toucan? Just answer that in your head. It is called an aracari. There's some slight differences, mainly its size. The bill is a little bit different. They are toucans. They're in the toucan family, but they are a separate genus, so they're known as aracari. So there you go. He was beside a giant ant nest there, by the way. And they are not just frugivores, eating fruit, but they will go after insects too. The tanagers, one of the things that one of the major families that we were introduced to at this point was the tanagers, one of the biggest groups of birds. I'm just checking my notes here on numbers. And this is the crimson back tanager. It's in the Thropidae family of tanagers. It's well, not totally, it's different from our tanagers, who are not true tanagers. I didn't realize that. And these ones are much smaller. They're usually between about 13 to 15 centimeters, whereas the ones that we see, like Western tanager, summer tanager, scarlet tanager, they're more at around the 17 centimeters. Um, we saw 19 different tanagers there out of the 28 possible tanagers, which is just amazing. Although in comparison, when we were in Ecuador, we saw 49 tanagers out of the 121 tanagers that are in Ecuador. Pretty amazing. This is another example of one of the ones that you can get exposed to, the bay-headed one, and another one, the golden hooded. Some of the color assemblages going on will just blow you away. Tanagers are really quite spectacular. Um, okay, the next group that was the largest group that also we got exposed to, hummingbirds, and now in this case, these are called Jacobins, which is some, if you haven't birded in the tropics, um, the thing to realize there is that some of the birds are called hummingbirds. They're all hummingbirds, but they've been given names, so many different types of names because the genus are all different. But it doesn't really help you with regards to knowing. You can't really tell right away. Oh, that's got to be a Jacobin. For what reason? Or they have a lot of words. In this case, this is the male and female, quite different. So sexual dimorphism. And sometimes you think you're looking at two totally different ones and it's the same species. Um, this little guy is another example of, I gotta, I'm gonna move this, sorry. Take this over here, something on my screen. The mountain gem, it tells you a little bit of information about where you might find this character because he's up in the highlands. But the a gem. I mean, a gem, and they have all these words, just a fairy, a wood nymph, a Jacobin, a gem, um, and it doesn't really. They don't tell you much, right, about the bird. Only when they start to. In this case, white-throated is another kind of a confusing thing because this is a female. Female doesn't have a white throat. Only the male does. So the hummingbirds, I would say in general in the tropics, have not been named very effectively. Here's a hermit, which again is a type of hummingbird. And in this case, it's a long-tailed. The neat thing about this hermit is that they have leks, L-E-K, leks, like the grouse do in Alberta. And they operate, a bunch of males get around and they primarily do a little dance, flicking their tail back and forth to attract the female in large groups. I didn't know that before. Um, so much to deal with. Now, Panama has hummingbirds like they actually have the word hummingbird, and it's called, some of them are called scintillant hummingbirds, and some of them are called charming hummingbirds. I don't know what makes one more charming than another, why they would have that name. They also have names like plumeletier, saberwing, barbthroat, sicklebill, puffleg. These are all, though, at least semi-descriptive because they're talking about body parts that you can, like a puff leg has these little puffy legs based on the feathers around their legs. So that was interesting. The long, yes, okay. Enough about the birds. No, sorry, I haven't done the leks yet. The other bird that does leks are mannequins. These are little tiny, smaller than a sparrow type of bird. And just an example of a couple of them, the little red-capped guy, the blue-capped mannequin, and then the golden collared mannequin. All of these fellows, the males, when they're dancing for the females, you've got to go on YouTube and look up these mannequins if you haven't ever before, because they are, I think, perhaps my favorite bird because of the dance. And if I was doing this live, and I had more room like a stage, I would dance. I'd show you what they do. It really is amazing. Their dance is quite humorous. And yeah, I was saying enough with the birds. Colors are everywhere, not just in the birds. They're in the plants. And the old expression, a rose is a rose is a rose. Well, in this case, a palm is a palm is a palm. Some of them are the pleating of the leaves, very interesting patterns. The colors, they can be red like this when they first emerge. And in the peach palm case, you've got to be aware of the tree trunk in the spines. It's not always a friendly palm. Um, Other colors in the plant, obviously, the flowers, the banana, if you've been in the tropics or if you've been in Mutart Conservatory, you're familiar with this. The other um, red seems to be a dominant color at least at the time period we were there. The passion flower, again, another spectacular uh, red. This is the giant heliconia. Hummingbirds, they are oftentimes the flower is shaped exactly to fit a certain species of hummingbird bill. When you actually look as a human looking down into the heliconia, it's not all that attractive actually, but this is the red twist heliconia and the Christmas heliconia. There are many, many species. And thanks to iNaturalist, I was able to get somewhere with identifying those. The butterflies, colors in butterflies. Let's give them a nod. These are relatives of buckeyes, like we get in Alberta too. Um, and let's not leave out dragonflies. This one's the carmine skimmer, a beautiful one. I mean, they're all beautiful. This is damselflies, ruby spot damselflies, two different types. And when I started looking into damselflies, I've started this the last year or so. Just amazing if you can get the detail of the thorax and the abdomen, all the color variations will blow you away. You got to start looking at dragonflies and damselflies a lot more. And what about some invertebrates? Let's throw them into the mix here. Color in the orb weavers. And also in the case of this fellow, the flat-backed millipede. Again, some striking colors. And let's not forget our mammals, colorful mammals. Look at the collar on this guy. This is the Jeffries tamarin, and they are endemic to Panama and Costa Rica. There actually are a lot of endemics that are just in that area, sometimes spilling over a little bit into northern Colombia. Um, and these fellows, let's see, what was really neat about these guys? Oh, yes, it's the smallest monkey that exists in this area, and it's the only tamarin that's here. Um, and I think he's vocalizing a little bit. And then this guy, maybe he's a little bit upset with a berry that wasn't so ripe, or he was making some comment about us. I'm not sure. The rodents, agoutis, are relatively prevalent if you're taking your time looking around. Another monkey on the in the trees that you can see in this area, white-faced capuchins. Um, what did I want to say about white-faced capuchins? Not sure. Um, okay, the loudest voice. These calls can be heard 3 miles away, the loudest of any monkey. And if you've been anywhere in the tropics, you'll know the howler monkey. Um, and he was being quite studious of us at that point. These are Marion shots, by the way, aren't they amazing? This was a fairly well-endowed male on the right side here. Um, they have, let me go back for a second. They have trichromatic color vision, just like we have. They have three different types of cones in the back of their eyes, like, where we have our rods and cones in the retina. And each of these are sensitive to different wavelengths of light, the blue, the green, the red, just like us. So they can see all the birds like we can, the butterflies in color. Um, like these guys. Okay, so now this is a tropical family that ant birds. We don't see any ant birds in where we are. And these guys are not easy to see. Pretty hard to find. These two, not too bad because they're pretty colorful and they actually got out in the open. Most of the time, these guys are skulking around on the ground and they're kind of a drab color. But looking at these fellows, they're really kind of neat. Now, these are both called antbirds. There's a huge family called Thamnophilidae, actually includes the ant wrens, which are about 8 to 11 centimeters. These guys, the ant birds, that are uh, they're in the middle size, which is about 12 to 15. And then the larger ones are called ant shrikes, which are 15 to 19 centimeters. But there's also here's an ant wren, a little smaller guy, another ant bird. There are also ant thrushes, antpittas, and ant vireos. Why? I don't know. I think they just they got out of they were getting bored with just calling everything an ant bird, so they came up with some other ideas here. There's even ant tanagers. Forgot to mention that. These birds all feed on, I thought they fed on ants. They don't feed on ants. They feed on the invertebrates that are fleeing, running away from these ant swarms. So you see them around ant swarms, but they're actually eating the things that are running away from the ants. Um, Okay, there we go. Next, oh, here's an ant shrike. Again, a fantastic shot by Marion. Um, the as I said, they're mostly reclusive. Um, and I wanted that was actually this guy here, the dull-mantled antbird. Isn't that a terrible name? Uh, Look at that eye. Like most ant birds, if you noticed before, they were black, and this one, the next, well, he's got kind of a brownish eye, but this is really red. Why not? Why didn't they, talk about that? And he's got colors and he's got dots and everything. Why call him the dull-mantled ant bird? Anyways, my thing for the tropics, at least especially in this area, I think birds have been they haven't been named very well. They really deserve a better approach. Um, the Smithsonian Institute in the Barrow, Colorado island. We went there. It's a great place. You got to include that on your trip. You got to book ahead of time. You have to reserve. You're allowed to stay for a day, and they pick you up on a boat. They bring you to the island. It's great. There's 100 years of research, over 100 years of research at this place. They have 12 different facilities spread throughout Panama. This is just one. It's the most studied rainforest in the world, and the Smithsonian has research in other areas, but this is where it all started. Um, Word to the wise, don't visit on Sunday. That's what we did, unbeknownst. All the researchers are not there. One of the benefits of going to this place is that you have a chance to talk to some of the researchers. Some of them are we met one out in the field. We were lucky. But yeah, Sunday is not the best time. The researcher we met was studying stingless bees. That's what these are, tiny, tiny little bees. We're looking at a little crack about maybe an inch, and this is their little nest, and all those little stingless bees around there. Um, and they actually are partly colonial and partly solitary, depending on the time of the year. And they're studying this because it's the only bee species that's known to do this. Um, okay, colors in insects. How about this cockroach? The coat of many colors on the cockroach. Um, the bee assassin. Sorry, no, this is an assassin bug, and he goes after cockroaches. Um, a harvest man, a daddy longlegs, that's actually armored. If you can see that, it looks like a chest, or it looks like a piece from a game board with that little spike out of him. And then one of my favorites, it's the first time I've ever caught a picture of a baby grasshopper. There's a little shorthorn grasshopper, and the little fellow down to the bottom is the baby. This is the little polka dot wasp moth. Um, Again, colors are everywhere, and didn't want to leave out our insect friends. I don't want to leave out our fungal friends either. And the yes, mushrooms. Okay, microflora to go with the microfauna, and I've chosen some non-traditional mushroom shapes here. You won't see one that is actually have any gills. Nothing that has a traditional mushroom shape. This that was a xylaria mushroom. This is a shelf mushroom that actually has pores underneath. It's Ganoderma, related to what we have in Alberta, a lacquered called a lacquered bracket. Um, this fellow, Cookiana, it's a type of cup fungus, but on a little stalk. And when it fills up with water, and then when it dries out, the spores are released from out of the cup. And so no gills involved. And this you probably recognize it's a morel, different than the species we have. But again, they have these lacuna surface that's all kind of subdivided like that, and the spores are inside there and will get released. So no gills. Mushrooms are again just amazing. What about color in lichens? Here we go. The one on the bottom right there is still a fungus, but it looks an awful lot like a lichen. But it's called a hypoxylon, and it actually has. If you see those little polka dots all along there, those are like little cups, and sort of like the uh, uh, what puffballs, like little puffballs all on the surface, and all kind of uh, brought together in one big, very thin protective layer going over tree bark. The other three fellows are or women are lichens, and the one on the top there, pimple pox lichen. Again, beautiful color. The Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, I missed the last two. Sorry. Or did and those two, the again, I've got some, my screen is partly blocked here. The golden hair lichen, yes, and the Christmas lichen. There we go. Okay. Another thing that took place in Smithsonian, not just looking at the ground all the time and the insects, the anteater or the tamandua. Um, Quite an amazing little character. And he was ripping apart the tree, trying to get after ants when we were there. Um, and if they get frightened, they will emit a foul-smelling spray like a skunk. Luckily, we didn't have to endure that. Plants. The A lot of the what we will know as house plants, we'll see out obviously in the tropics. This is the Swiss cheese plant. There's many philodendrons are known as Swiss cheese too, but this is the actual Monstera true Swiss cheese plant. They're all in that Araceae family with those long cone-like flowers. This is the philodendron. They don't have the leaves that are fenestrated like over in what's truly Swiss cheese. Um, and we got an interesting leaf minor going on in that philodendron. The bromeliads there's a whole range of bromeliads. This one's flowering. A lot of at this time of the year they weren't flowering. They were finished. But this is a nice, really colorful one. Um, and specifically the Guzmania, one of the Guzmania genera. The one of our favorite places, maybe one of our favorite places was Consenda Lodge, and this is the only lodge, quote unquote, that we visited, that we stayed in. Pretty primitive. That's our little cabin there, and it was basically a bed and a little washroom, shower, and then the balcony. And then we ate our meals in the communal area. Again, everything was handmade. The people there were just amazing. And this is the bird feeder, and they would get to it via a little rudimentary wooden ladder. And so this place is really economical because it's um, not too high class, and but you're right in the middle of everything. Even though it was a dry season, you do get rain, and we had a torrential one that day looking out over our balcony. It parted a little bit, and then off in the distance, where that very skewed arrow is showing on the picture, that's pointing to a little thing there in the trees. And I'm looking at my binoculars, and I'm having a hard time making it out. This is Marion's photograph zooming in, and we're going, Oh, it's a sloth. I think it's a sloth. Um, and sure enough, um, the next day, or then maybe 2 days after that. Anyways, we did see the three-toed sloth and got some pictures, and it was a mum. So in that first pictures, the baby's actually squashed in there, but you can kind of see the arms holding around, just around the shoulders, and there he is again, mother carrying the baby, and they are the slowest mammals in the world, and they can sleep for 15 to 20 hours, but they're also very powerful swimmers. And they can actually cross the Panama Canal. They can swim to that Barrow, Colorado, which is in the middle of the canal, the Smithsonian place. Um, Colors again. When we've a little bit of during that day where we were getting all that rain in between the rain squalls just around the lodge, we thought, okay, let's just see what we can find. And sure enough, stink bugs, some again different colors, different ornamentation. This is the little pleasing fungus beetle. Again, vibrant colors, and the uh, what was this? Yeah, again, my screen is acting funny. Um, This is the tarantula hawk. Again, colors, butterflies. Oh my goodness. What a range of butterflies. Banded peacock to rusty tip page to the striped streak. These are all genera that we don't have in families we don't have. Um, the ones that this is the crescent, a form of crescent, anyway, orange banded, and we have crescents obviously in Alberta. And this was another one that we don't have, the heliconia, the whole family of heliconia, which are amazing. But this was a solid orange one. It's my favorite color. Um, okay, back to birds. There's a whole family of birds called ovenbirds that we don't have. And so our ovenbird is a warbler, and we should call it an ovenbird warbler just to be distinct, because there's a whole family of birds called ovenbirds, primarily because of the nest they make. Um, but it's a neotropical, and it's known as Fernaridae. And this is one example of these guys, and they're all kind of rusty, and they're all playing around with tree branches and in amongst vines and everything. This is called a tree runner. They have some great names in this family, but a majority of them are wood creepers, and that's just a page from the guidebook showing you, oh my goodness, I got to spend a lot of time, be really careful looking because there are a lot are very similar. Here's an example of the cocoa wood creeper. So you need to get photographs because when you look at the guidebook, you can't figure them out right away because they're gone. So at night we can look at our photographs and then we can compare. Okay, we look at the side view because you can see now the wings and the tail are the markings. You can also begin to see a bit here in the front of the belly. And you need to see that. In addition to, you need to see the side, the back, sorry, the head and the back and how much streaking is going on. So there, and then another picture or zooming in, you have to see the throat. So in this case, you see that there's no streaking. It's actually um, just a pale buff color. So all of these things are going to help you to get down to identifying the wood creepers. Oh, let me go back. Sorry. Uh, some of the other names of the birds in this family, they are spine tails, tufted cheeks, foliage gleaners. I love these. I love some of the names. And xenops. There's such a bird as it called as xenops. We saw all of those, at least one of them, one example of each of those. But reluctantly, we did not see any wood haunters or leaf tossers. Um, Leaf tosser, obviously, pretty good for behavior. I'm not sure what a wood haunter is doing, but you get the kind of the idea of where they're hanging out most of the time, foraging in and around trunks. Um, okay, what's our next guy here? Oh, yes. Okay. Um, so the same happening around the around our place, spending some time. You saw that picture at the very beginning of the show where I'm down on my hands and knees taking pictures. I do spend a lot of time now trying to find our microfauna, and some example. These are actually liverworts, and only existing in the tropics, the one called the scalewort and the one's called the pouncewort. And the pouncewort is actually tiny little leaves or tiny little plant, look like many leaves, growing on another big leaf. And then in the ferns, a whole new family of ferns, tongue ferns, um, which again, beautiful, beautiful once you get down and enjoy that. And then this whole area of lycopods that in this case, there are three different types of selaginellas, which are a specific form within that whole group of club mosses, all these very primitive plants. Um, and the tropics are just a wonderful place for that. So uh, the rain gave us a chance, a little respite after that because we couldn't get out much, and to look at our notes, look at our guidebooks, catch up, and get ready for the trail tomorrow, which is going to be a mud slog. And you can see the rubber boots on the right there. It's it's going to be a hard climb, and because we're going looking for some, we actually hired a guide to do this, and this was looking for these rare, fairly rare birds, very restricted in range. There's only, I think there were three spots in all of Panama, and this is the spiny-faced ant shrew. I don't know if you can see the little spines on the face of this one. What is the male on the left, the female on the right? And this is more the classic ant bird view. In this case, known as an ant shrike. You see the little hook on the bill there, kind of like a shrike. Um, but yeah, very, very. It was. If I'd known, this is not an incredibly beautiful bird, but it's an incredibly hard bird to get. But you kind of wonder sometimes. And this is another one that we found that day, only because the guide knew the sounds, and he just kept being persistent about, we just keep waiting, keep looking, and we saw this is the sapoyoa. I think I got that, and he's called sapoyoa enigma because for many years they didn't know where to put this guy. Um, it ends up he's his own family now. He's monotypic in his own family. And they thought it was connected to a New World family, maybe a flycatcher, maybe a mannequin. But it turns out his closest genetic relationship is with an Old World family of birds. And so he's really kind of this link between the Old World and New World. Really kind of amazing, but very nondescript olive green in color. The guy on the left is someone that they say often gets confused with the sapoyoa. And this is a northern chiffornis, another great word. Um, and but in this case, we had good lighting, so you can see really the much more browner look of this guy versus the olive green. And the description in the book was exactly for the chiffornis. It says it cranes its neck and peers about while clinging on a slender vertical stem. That's exactly what it was doing. And there's a bunch of those things in the guidebook with regards to behavior, and you just go, they nailed it. That's wonderful. So this was named after a fellow, Moritz Schiff. So Schiff-ornis means Schiff's bird, ornis being Latin for bird. And he was a German physiologist. Now, not sure why whoever named it after must have been a really good buddy. Um, okay. Let's see. How are we doing just going to check my time here. Um, okay. The Finca Hartmann. Finca just means farm. It's a coffee farm, and once we started moving over to the west, kind of had to skip a bunch of places. Not enough to fit. I mean, an hour to fit in Panama is not enough time. But we're moved way over to the west now. We're up in sort of more of a highlands area. This is where a lot of the coffee farms are. That is a coffee plant on the right-hand side there, in flower. And but they're also a lot of these farms are set up for ecotourism, and this is the case on the left here. This is kind of an area that you can be birding off of. It's a little viewpoint, and then there's trails leading off from there. Um, some trogons. Trogons are again tropical species. If you've birded any time in Mexico and south, you'll have seen probably something like this. These are the one. These are also related to the Quetzal, and we one of the trails we got kind of annoyed is called Los Quetzales. So it's one of the best places in the world to see the resplendent Quetzal, and we kept getting tired of people asking us who were just that's all they were out there to do. Have you seen the Quetzal yet? Have you seen the Quetzal yet? And it started to get really annoying. And it was like, no, but we've seen so many other things. Let us show you. No, no, I want to see the Quetzal. Um, so the Trogon was related to the Quetzal, and they are amazing. So this is a female and male. Again, sexually dimorphic, incredible difference. And some of the things you have to look for when you're trying to identify trogons. One is the bill color. It can vary quite from quite dark to quite light. It's the eye ring. The color of the eye ring is very significant. Red, white, blue. Um, the In this case, the wing pattern you can see in the female, it's kind of a pale, like a cream almost. It can contrast to her brown cinnamon back. And in the case of the male, he's got all these little vermiculation kind of items. But the other key thing is the tail. So you see the male and female tail are pretty similar with all this little barring along the edges. The main color is different, but the barring on the edge is the same. And the actual tail is black tipped at the bottom there. And then these two little white areas that aren't barred at the very bottom of the tail there. And this will help you nail down, even though you don't see the front because the front can vary quite a bit too and helps you to identify trogons. But a lot of times you can tell just by the back. Another one, the female slaty-tailed trogons. So you can start to see now we get a bit of the front, and you can see they vary quite a bit. They can be yellow, they can be bright red, as in this case, but it's the bill that intrigued me. This is Batman. He's got that little hook over on the nose. And the only way we know this is a slaty-tailed trogon because it's a female, the female black-tailed trogon, as opposed to the black-throated, which we saw before. Um, she has a yellow bill with that little black hood on it. Otherwise, the coloration is exactly the same. And so again, a quick view in a binoculars before the thing flies away, a quick photograph it really helps when you're trying to check it and verify at night. Well, what was that again? Um, and that's the fun that we like to do rather than be with someone who's just telling us what it is. That takes for us the whole discovery and fun out of it. This fork-tailed flycatcher, again, the long tail, again, a striking bird, even though it's only black and white. I'm talking about black and in this case, black, it's all black. Very strange bird, only found in the tropics. And it is known as the umbrella bird. This is the guidebook, and this one that we happened to get to see was the female, the one in the middle there. You never quite see the little red marks. They say it's very barely visible, but it had that kind of pompadour head and the big thick bill. Basically all black with kind of fairly, you couldn't tell really on the tail, but it was kind of short. The male looks like a frigate bird when it pumps its big red throat pouch out. Didn't know there was another bird like that. So many things to discover in Panama. You gotta go. You gotta go. Um, okay, the yellow-rumped cacique. How many can you see here? And that's the little quiz for you. And if you tell your partner, person that you're sitting beside, or just in your own head, did you see three? Because there's one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom, and the big curve of that palm. Um, when you start to look closer, because you've got a photograph, and because you want to, oh, what kind of cacique is this? Well, it ends up being a yellow rumped. But it's not just because of the yellow rump. You have to actually see the eye. And in this case, you can see it's a blue eye. So it nails it down as a yellow-rumped cacique. The other thing about there are other birds that look like this that are kind of black and yellow. But if you see that, oh, I just my battery is running low. Just a second. I had to move my computer earlier, and so I had to unplug, and I forgot to re-plug it in. There we go. Okay. The fat counts, the CAS built on the on that bottom right picture there. You see it extends right into the middle of the head. That's unique to these caciques. Or oral pendolas is also another group, and but it's the blue eye that helps you to make sure it's a cacique. Again, the advantages of a photograph. This, so we talked about that Lodge Consenda, the Smithsonian place, Finca Hartman, um, and in that whole El Volcan and Boquete area, which is up in the mountains near Park Amistad, the international park right by the Costa Rican border. Just in between the two towns, between Volcan Baru and Boquete, which are well known in as birding places, there's a little place called the Birding Paradise, and it's a man who has revegetated his farm and done an amazing job. And again, highly recommend everyone has to go visit the Birding Paradise. Um, this is Mary, my wife, having her coffee. She's got her camera there with her, leisurely looking out at the feeders, and we were having a fantastic time. I forget how many hours we spent there. You can stay there. He only has one little room, and there are people already there. They've come back. I don't know. They come back every year. They were saying the last 10 years they've been here. Um, so fantastic place. And hummingbirds, of course, always you got feeders, you're having hummingbirds come in. And this is another example of a name that doesn't help too much, a wood nymph. But the violet ear, now there's a good name because look at that hummingbird with that violet ear, at least ear feathers around there. So that really that was a bonus, I think. On this case, a long-billed starthroat is on the left. The long bill, obviously, yeah, you can tell that in contrast to the other, the rufous-tailed hummingbird with the very red bill and medium-sized length. When you get into hummingbirds, if you have, again, haven't spent a lot of time because we don't have that many to deal with. Um, that the bill length is really important. That if you see on the left, there's that little white post, what they call post-ocular spot. That is really keen for hummingbirds. If they have it or they don't have it, can really help you. Otherwise, it can look a lot similar. The barring, the tail is another key item. We don't see it so well here. Maybe we Oh, well, here, the wing length regards as regarding to the tail feathers. This one much longer. Some of them are the same. Some of them are shorter. Those are the kinds of things which you can, when you're reading the guidebook afterwards, go, oh, let's look at the picture. And you can cross compare and you learn so much by going through that. The bill shape, the bill length. The color can be very confusing sometimes because you get a bad light and everything looks black. So you don't know whether it was purple or dark blue or green even. And so you get to look for other features, and that's what really helps. Okay, what else was coming to the feeder? We've seen this bird a lot in the tropics, the chachalaca, various species. This one's the gray-headed, very ugly bird, and it's about a fairly large bird. And but it's coming in for the bananas. And normally they're, if you want, I think the term is a raucous cacophony, is what they usually describe when a bunch of these get together. They squawk, and you just want to leave as soon as you can because it's so loud. It's quite annoying. And but anyways, the word chachalaca, I thought, oh, where does that come from? So I looked that up, and it's the sound, supposedly the sound they make screaming, and so Mexican slang, I understand, for a person that's a very noisy talker is a chachalaca, which makes sense. Um, Related to them is this fellow, the crested guan, and with the little dewlap that's very significant underneath his throat there, and also the bare markings around his eye and bill, facial skin. Um, Here we go. Another fellow we saw around the birding paradise, the only time we saw him in our whole trip, was this flycatcher here, the royal flycatcher. And this is what you see the middle picture, kind of what we captured. Um, but look at the male and the female. They both have this amazing little flourish of hair feathers, head feathers. And there's the female with the yellow and the male with the red. So you just imagine if you see those two going together and having their little courtship dance, that would be quite something. Looking forward to that in future trips. The back to tanagers again, a whole new flock, a whole new variety of tanagers in the mountain highlands area. Now this guy called Cherry's tanager. Now I looked that up. It's named after a fellow called George Cherry. Um, where am I? Okay, no, George Cherry. Uh, beyond the. Oh well, can't find it. Um, maybe it's. I think. Oh, there. I'm getting it. Chachalaca, there we are. George Cherry. He was a prolific museum field collector, known for accompanying former President Teddy Roosevelt on the famous 1913 exploration into the Brazilian Amazon basin. And I guess because of that, and also being collecting for various museums, they named this bird after him, the Cherry's tanager. Now, that's a male on the left, a female on the right. I find the tanager bills are really neat. If you look at that, the coloration on that bill, a lot of them have these little silver, shiny marks to it. These tropical true tanagers, as different from our non-tanagers. The tanager has got to be put in the word quote unquote now. Um, so now this is the flame colored tanager. And so now look at that. That's Cherry's tanager. Um, who's a better flame colored tanager? Flame rumped, even. Sorry, it's flame rumped. So the guy on the right with the yellow, he's the flame rumped. Somehow they got this mixed up, I think. But some other tanagers that are again are the uh, the tropical tanagers, the Thropidae family, a little tawny crested on the right there in the top, the white shouldered, that's the females, it doesn't show the white shoulder, the emerald, and then last but not least, there's our summer tanager, the one of the North American tanagers that will migrate, and we'll see it down there in Panama also. Um, and it's the genetics are different. The bill shape of our tanager, quote unquote, is more grosbeak like. And so it's really they've lumped it in there with the cardinalidae, more cardinal-like, as opposed to the tanagers of the tropics. Almost right. Let's see. Okay. And so now we look for this guy in the tanager. We spent hours and hours going through the book going, there's no tanager like this. We found something new and different. Wow. Woo-hoo. But turns out that this is a finch. If you looked at the beak a little bit better, we never got a good view and it's not a great photograph. And the tanagers in the tropics, their beaks vary quite a bit, can be almost finch-like. But this turns out it's a yellow-thighed finch thigh, like around your legs, right? Obviously, yellow thighed. It has tibial feathers like that. And so when you see him move, when you see this bird moving in the underbrush, this one is out in the clearing a little bit. It looks like some little pieces of popcorn or something moving around. It's very strange. Um, okay, getting close to wrapping it up here. We're going to have a little predator. The roadside hawk, a beautiful bird, and its name, it's all over the place. You see it very, very commonly. Again, it should be a reminder to anybody who's birded down there. Little ferruginous pygmy owl, you hear them all the time, doot, doot, doot. But not that often do you actually get a chance of finding him, although he is diurnal to a degree. And the laughing falcon, you can hear this guy and his maniacal laughing sound, and you can't find him. He can and yet he's right there out in the open, and you can look for him, and so easy to miss. And the last of the raptors, this is the yellow-headed caracara. And we're looking at him. They eat carrion and refuse. So a lot of times you see him on the road. And it's like they pay no attention. Zoom in on this telephoto shot, and he's kind of like deer in the headlights here. And then there's a big truck coming down, and it's almost like he's going, "What, the truck?" Um, I don't care. And he shrugs his shoulders and just keeps kind of pacing along. Now, this is different from the fellow that was up in Jasper. That was the crested caracara. This is the yellow headed caracara. Just a sec. And their ranges, I read that their ranges are expanding, both of them. And they're saying they think they are expanding their range because this guy, his normal range only goes up to it's now penetrating beyond Costa Rica. It didn't go up much beyond that. Crested caracara was into the southern U.S. and Texas and stuff, and up into Jasper. They're saying it's because they think there's so much deforestation going on. These are birds that are adapted to more of the open areas. Okay, that's a wrap, folks. Happy future nature travels. And one last thing is that you always learn something when you're traveling. And when we went to in some of the rural areas, the bus stops are decorated. They're painted. Wouldn't that be something if we painted our bus stops with wildlife in order to encourage people to become more aware of what's around them? Anyways, that's the last learning for tonight. Thanks so much, people.